So how are you going to test? You need another machine?
No. What I'll do is I get on my phone and I go in that room.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So I'm going to pull that up on my phone and see what it's picking up.
Okay. I'll stand up close so I don't have to cross with that. We got it. Okay, Greg, can you hear me? Can you hear me at all, Greg? Greg, hello, hello, hello. Greg, can you hear me? Testing, testing, testing. Greg, can you hear me? Greg. Testing, testing. Yeah. So roughly where you are, or over here a little bit.
Right here. And I'll be right here, so if somebody starts, I'll wrangle them in.
Grab a beer. Get started in 2 minutes.
Sure.
All right, folks, this is your 2-minute warning. We're going to get started in 2 minutes. 2 minutes. Grab your beers, grab a seat, and we'll get it going.
The audio is a little fuzzy in that.
Is it? Interesting. Oh, yeah, that's probably it. And then do you do all the changes?
I'll do the changes to the other slide, so when you start I'll jump up.
Okay.
And if you're ready to, like if they're on their last question, just give me the signal.
All right, perfect. All right, let's get started. That means clap. All right, welcome. Analyze Boulder 58. I see some faces out there in the crowd who've been with us since the beginning, and they're probably a little surprised to see me up here. The old timers amongst us will be surprised to see me up here because I haven't emceed the event for a while now. Tony, thanks for the vote of confidence. Tony is out of town, so she asked me if I could fill in for her. So my apologies. We always like to start with thanks. Obviously, big shout out to the organizers every time. Over here you have Eric and Greg. And in Incentia, of course, Tony, who's usually doing what I'm doing, and Jennifer, who unfortunately doesn't get to make it in all that often, but behind the scenes is the person who's making a whole lot of stuff happen. So thanks to them as well. We like to thank Galvanize and always make a shout out for them for having us here. They don't charge anything for the event. It's a wonderful space. We're all here. We're all happy every month, and we just love being here. So thanks, Galvanize. Danielle, would you like to say a little bit?
My name is Danielle. I'm the community coordinator here at Galvanize. Thank you so much for being here tonight. A few things, if you're wondering what we do at Galvanize, we got 3 different things. So we got the events, which you guys are attending right now. We've got the co-working space, so you guys are actually sitting in a co-working space right now. And then we've got our programs, data science and web development. If you guys are interested in any of those, got a few things for you. We've got Learn to Code, February 13th, 20th, and 27th here. You can find that on Eventbrite, that's free. And if you're interested in data science, we've got a data science immersive information session, let's see, Wednesday the 28th at 5:30. So if you're interested in any of those 3 events, membership, or the school, come talk to me, or one of the other event coordinators that is wearing the shirt. So thank you guys so much.
Thanks, Danielle. Also want to give a shout out. We don't do this very often, but I want to do it tonight because they do give us the beer for wholesale. And the beer that you're drinking tonight is brought to us by Vindication Brewing. They're a wonderful brewery. They're out in Gun Barrel, so they have a great little tap house. And I just want to give them a shout out tonight because they've been awesome throughout the years. They used to bring us kegs, now they're giving us bottles, and they just keep the beer flowing, so thanks to them. Tonight, here's how we're going to do it. It's almost 6:30 now. We're working on intro and announcements. Our first speaker is Jay Schwartz. Where's Jay? Jay, go and stand up. Show them your face. He'll be talking about Watson and TensorFlow. And then Kirkwood, go and stand up. Show them your face. NLP, customers, and beer. And then Seth. Where's Seth? Oh, right next to him. He'll be talking about daisy chain cloud tools. So thanks, guys. And then we'll wrap up at 7:45, socializing what Tony likes to say, data style, with beer and good times. Thank you, all of you who have donated to the beer kitty. We're to the point now where we've really run out of the money that we got a couple of years ago from the Boulder Startup Community Fund grant, which basically bought beer for about 4.5 to 5 years. And so, don't tell them that. So we're now funding the beer using the beer kitty. And last month, you guys paid for your own beer, so thank you. So let's keep that going. Keep the money flowing, keep the beer flowing. That's all I'm going to say about that. Get connected. Slack, analyzeboulder.slack.com. If you want to be on our Slack channel, go ahead and email Tony at this address, uxtony@gmail.com. We have LinkedIn as well. It's a LinkedIn group. You probably don't need that URL. Just search for Analyze Boulder on LinkedIn and you'll find it. And then Twitter, of course, at Analyze Boulder. I have that written down for you here. And then the only one of our speakers who uses Twitter gave us his, we're really an antisocial crowd, gave us his Twitter handle there, and that's Seth. All right, announcements. Greg is going to run around with the microphone there. So let's talk about hackathons, conferences, workshops, collaborations, projects, anything else you can think of that's relevant.
Sorry guys, I'm on a conference call, they're muted. But I do have an announcement for a fun event coming up. It is CU's inaugural 3NT competition. So what's that? Well, if you guys haven't seen me before, my name is Patty. I'm Tony's extroverted friend that she likes to poke at and all that because I sit in the front. And I work for the graduate school at CU. So what I've done is created this competition for our PhD students to present their dissertation in 3 minutes or less. There are cash prizes involved. We've done a couple of rounds already, so this is going to be the big finale. There's going to be free food. It's going to be in the Glen Miller Ballroom at the University Memorial Center on February 20th from 3 to 5 p.m. It is going to be videotaped, so you can always watch them later, but it's going to be a great, good thing. And since I'm on this call, I also have a job available for a graduate program assistant. It's working with a program that I built. So if you're interested in learning more about Slate and how you can get into graduate admissions, let me know. I'll be back.
Announcement on a series of luncheon discussions on the topic of business perspectives on deep learning. And this is for people who are into deep learning, at least know how to spell it, and who think that it's important for your company and maybe for your future. We're going to sort of dig into it. We're looking for 7 people who will come together for 4 Wednesdays at BJ's Boulder. BJ's Boulder, and 11:30, and we'll spend about a little over an hour talking about sort of deep learning and how that new shiny technology can be used in businesses. Normal companies, not Google, not startups, but sort of the other in-between types of companies. Anyways, bizsmartanalytics.com, all the information there. Or just see me afterwards. I've got some extra copies of what we're going to do for those 4 weeks and the questions. Thank you.
Thanks, Richard.
Hi everyone, my name is Sean. I have a company called Blockmatics. We do blockchain education training. We have a couple courses coming up here in Boulder and Denver, the galvanized locations at the beginning of March. The website is blockmatics.tech. It has all the info on there. I have some flyers if you're interested as well. We'll be doing some meetups in between, and we are going to be looking for, if anybody is skilled in blockchain, we are looking for educators, teachers essentially. So if you already know about it, you're interested in teaching, we are looking to hire for that, so come see me after.
Just as a reminder, if you've had your eye on any jobs with any of the big high-tech companies in Colorado, go ahead and visit their posting websites for full-time jobs. There's a lot of stuff happening out there. Aerospace, high-tech, all sorts of new startups too. But go check them now because I know there's need.
Anyone else? Okay.
I wanted to announce that there's a Data for Democracy meetup on February 17th at 11 o'clock at the Boulder Library, and the official title is Cookies, Coffee, and Data Science for Good. And there's going to be lightning talks, and I'm giving one of them. I think there's 6 of them. I guess they're more than, of course, the lightning talks are more detailed, more intimate than what we go into here longer. But if you're interested in that, February 17th, Boulder Library dinner.
Yeah, will there be cookies?
All right, next Monday, we're having a Black Fox AI meetup down at the Dark Horse, 6 o'clock.
I saw some hands back there. Diana?
Hi, everybody. Sarah and I, who's right here, are organizing the data science track for Boulder Startup Week, which is in May. And we are looking, and Boulder will be one of the events, but we have 4 more events that we're planning, and we want to have the best, coolest stuff at our tracks. So we're looking for speakers in the area of healthcare, AI, or like machine learning in healthcare, NLP, metrics for startups, what was that? Advice for aspiring data scientists. There will be no panels, but it'll be all talks that are like 20 to 30 minutes long. So get in touch with me, and I'll probably post this on the forum. Get in touch with me if you'd like to speak. Thank you.
I'd like to have a round of applause for Diana as well. She's one of our former co-organizers who stepped down because she got too busy and cool for us, but can we just have a round of applause for her? She's awesome.
Hi everyone, I'm Sarah. I'm Diana's co-conspirator here. Also, we run a meetup called Women in Machine Learning and Data Science, and in March, on March 5th, we're going to be hosting an event partnering with CU. There's a conference called WIDS, Women in Data Science, in Stanford. But we're going to be hosting a satellite event where we're going to be live streaming some of the talks, and we'll have 2 awesome keynote speakers. So everyone is welcome. Not just, everyone is welcome. I'll just leave it at that, and it's free. So March 5th, check it out. I'll post the link to the Eventbrite, I guess, afterwards.
Who else? Talk jobs. Who's got them? Who wants them?
Hi, my name is Brock Kosowski. I'm with a company, local startup in town called Sequant.io, CQUANT.io. We're an energy analytics software as a service company. We a cool web platform that we're re-architecting. We're looking for a UI, front-end developer, UI, UX kind of person to help us make it look really pretty and make it really usable for our users. So if you're interested in energy analytics, UI, UX, front-end design, come see me afterwards.
More jobs. New job, have jobs.
Hi again, everybody. My startup called FlightSayer. We do air travel, machine learning for air travel. I'm hiring a software engineer and a DevOps engineer and a data analyst, but that position is based in Boston, so it's more of the engineering stuff. So please get in touch.
Hi, I'm Beth Betts. I'm looking for opportunities in project portfolio and program management. Is unique innovative?
Is there a URL for that? They can check. Okay.
A bit of a more front also. My name is Angela Luca. I am looking for a position in data science and for data science versus integrator, which is similar to Calvin's program. So this.
Hands up. Jobs, jobs, jobs. See some in the back.
Yeah, hi, my name is Mason. It's my 5th time to analyze Boulder. I'm going to encourage you to stand up. I just finished a master's in math at CU. Thank you. And I'm looking to transition into the industry in data science. I've got some program experience in Python and data science libraries there. So looking for a very motivated job seeker. Thanks.
All right, let's take one more.
Hi, I'm the Chief Strategy Officer for eScience.ai, primarily based out of Europe and China, but my business offices are actually in Miami, although my family is here, so I travel out. I'm looking for machine learning expertise, in particular related to sentiment analysis and analyzing large blocks of social media data to extract meaningful signals based upon inputs from customers, as well as people who have experience in machine vision as it pertains to industrial automation.
All right, thank you. A lot of jobs, a lot of announcements. Thanks everyone tonight. Okay, let's move into the presentations tonight. This is the main event. Quick note on format. Everyone who's here has agreed to a 5-minute flash presentation, followed by 5 minutes Q&A. So they're going to keep it high energy. So we ask everyone hold your questions until the end. You'll get a chance to ask your questions during the 5 minutes of Q&A at the end. That's also your opportunity to heckle these guys. Okay. Just heckle me. No, heckle us all. So the thing is, it's a really loose kind of format. It's really fun. And so these guys are just going to come up here and have a really good time with it. They're going to repeat your questions when you make them. So please, if you could, try to formulate the questions succinctly. Sometimes we get what I like to call run-on questions. And also, please try to keep your question 1 question per question, none of those twin or 3-pronged questions. That's going to help them out a lot. Okay? Are you ready to go? Okay, Jay, you're up. Jay Schwartz, big round of applause.
All right. Hello, everybody. So I'm from Black Box AI, but I'm talking about discovery, because the theme of this was an aha moment. And so this is something I did at a job prior to joining Black Box. But part of what Black Box is about is solving these kinds of problems. So you all can read. I'm not going to read this here. Intelligent mobile agent is what we built. So this was an IBM Watson-based intelligent agent that answered questions about healthcare, benefits, and health information, fitness, wellness, and a variety of other topics. We built it, as I said, in Watson, and realized I'm not allowed to wander very far from the podium here. It had a natural language interface. We actually migrated through several generations of IBM technology from the old Q&A system through NLP and dialogue through conversation. So this is the tech, but actually this talk is not all about the tech. This is the methodology, and this is kind of an insight into what it takes to build an intelligent system. So it has to be what I call a seed and grow system. You have an imperfect seed that does okay on the problem, and over time you mature that or grow it into something that solves the problem. So it's contrary to the old thinking of the way software is built, where it's a one and done system. So you have to manage user feedback, you have to feed this thing and care for it, and it will achieve amazing results if you realize that's how you need to tackle this problem space. So one of the big issues in these kinds of systems is data availability, having enough training data. So my aha moment came when I started with what is shown here as seed 1. So basically the precision and recall was terrible. You can't read this plot, you want everything in the upper right corner, you want nothing in the lower left corner. But you can see the distribution was spotty at best, terrible accuracy, and we struggled with figuring out how to feed this thing. And I had built a food nutrition system where I had done all the work myself. I went out to a website, scraped all the food items, assembled all of their nutritional facts into categories, and I did all this with Python and just piped through and then fed into the system. And we achieved very high accuracy levels. So we decided to apply the same logic and do synthetic data. We literally used a workbook to generate enough data to train our system more accurately. And the result was what you see at C2. And an additional insight into this is, during that process, we crafted 2 patents, both of which are already obsolete, which is an indication of the rate of change with machine learning systems. You can write a beautiful patent, but it'll be utterly useless by the time you've filed it and completed the entire process. GANs are one of the shining lights currently on the deep learning side, but they've just begun. These are just a few of the variants. And I stopped counting at 18 different variations that use different subtle techniques. And then there's also transfer learning, because you can now train on some related system or a set of training data, and then very quickly, with a small amount of data, train a new classifier that understands that new data space. So basically, you actually can make your own data, contrary to everything you may have learned if you studied data science. That's it.
All right. 5 minutes Q&A. Let's go.
Yes.
So how well did your algorithm work once you tested it again on real world data?
On which?
Real world data.
It performed at 97% accuracy. And it's not a statistical accuracy because we're dealing with the English language. So actually it was a user-based scoring system to say this was accurate or it wasn't. And 97% of the responses came back. They were sufficiently accurate that they were okay.
I'm just curious, you said you use Watson. Is there like an API that's available that anybody can use, or how did you get access to it?
Yeah, you're sitting immediately adjacent to an IBM expert. But basically, yes, you just go to Bluemix online and you can look at their toolkit there. They have all sorts of componentry. Basically, Watson, Azure, and all the others that are out there are toolkit systems where they have different componentry that allows you to assemble them in a way that solves a business problem. And you can do it all inside their environment, or you can work to extend beyond the environment. And actually, in my intelligent agent example, we use TensorFlow over top of Watson to solve some meddlesome issues with training Watson directly. And we ended up discovering that not one Watson, but 4 Watsons were required to solve our problem space. And our TensorFlow classifier did traffic control over top of the 4 Watsons and solved, basically shunted queries into the correct Watson for good answers.
Guys, should be able to pay for that.
Yes, it was not free. It was above the free scale, let's put it that way. You can get a lot of these services for free if you have small data sets and small situations. AWS will do it. But if you get anything at any scale.
Hey, nice talk. Can you expand on how you synthesize data? Because it seems like that would require a model, which is kind of a chicken and egg problem here.
Yes, and it was an admittedly crude model. It was constructed inside of a workbook, and literally we would have the unbiased data that we had as a training start, and we took out nouns and verbs and did different things with them, different lematizations and things like that that achieved it so that we could rotate in replacement words. And we did that with synonyms and other language variants, and so we got to sufficient data to actually prove our accuracy substantially.
How did you handle language bias, and how did you handle demographic bias?
We really didn't encounter a great deal of that, largely due to the nature of the subject matter. The nutrition side, it was just, you're asking about some food item or other things, so that is not subject to a lot of those biases. The language bias also was tamped down because you're talking about benefits questions. So that actually points to another insight, is if you can confine the space of a data science problem to a small area, you can get exceptionally good results. So we didn't have to worry about all the ways people talk about things as much, because they're asking about where can I get a flu shot? So there's only so many ways you can ask that particular type of question. And so we didn't have to suffer from that too much. We're not putting stuff on Twitter.
Nice job. Can you talk a little bit about your target end users and how you found them, or did you already have them? Who are you targeting?
This was a work for an insurance company. They already have a population, and what they were attempting to do was reduce the volume of calls coming into their call center, as well as to improve the turnaround time, because a bot, right, an intelligent agent, can be pinged at any time of the day or night. It doesn't have to wait, you don't have to be on call. So it improved client satisfaction. And it also scraped off a whole bunch of the noise level simple questions back to the bounding situation. We didn't solve, run-on questions with 27 clauses. That basically bumped to it, because that's not a problem space we can solve for just yet.
Huge round of applause. Thank you, Jay. And just so you all know, Jay, how many times have you presented here?
Oh, several times. And
So it's your third or fourth? Any third?
Probably my third, and as an indication of how long I've been doing this, the last time I presented, Justin was the host.
I think he's making fun of my age. All right, thank you, Jay. Big round of applause for our next presenter, first timer, Kirk O'Donovan.
So I'm sorry, I'm going to talk about beer. So bear with me. My name is Kirk O'Donovan. I have a background in applied economics. This will stand right here. And I'm a newly minted data scientist. I went through the data science immersive program at Galvanize and graduated in December. So I'm doing what's I lovingly call integrated neural network, working with New Belgium Brewery. We're predicting beer taster commentary based on chemical measurements of that beer. So New Belgium Brewing Company is the 4th largest craft brewery in the United States, 8th brewery overall. And so as with any company, consistency of their product is key. They use a slew of proprietary terminology and methods to determine that consistency, which I have been allowed to summarize here as beer hot or beer not. Not just means the beer does meet or not means that it doesn't meet expectations, and hot means that it does. And those expectations might be clarity or aroma, bitterness, sour, etc. So the beer batches are tested in 2 different ways. There's a battery of chemical tests that are administered to the beer, and a panel of beer tasting experts, which are also known as Lucky Beer New Belgium Brewery employees, taste the beer and then determine if the beer meets these expectations, whether it's hot or not. So my question is, can we use these chemical measurements to predict whether that panel is going to say that the beer is hot or not? I'm working with 5,500 batches of beer, 50 chemicals per batch of beer. Not all chemicals are measured for all brands of beer, so missing values are filled in for the sake of the learning model, and I have standardized the chemicals to avoid overweighting chemicals that are measured with larger values. Now, New Belgium turns out to do pretty well with their batches of beer, so the hot beer outweighs the not beer by about 4 to 1. This is great for the company, but this is not great for training a learning model that I want to detect not batches of beer, so I have balanced the classes. I'm using a multi-layer perceptron neural network, which I'm not going to go into the details for the sake of time, but if you have questions, please ask. Oh, these are the brands, by the way. Also have brands as my feature space. So this is a model performance graphic. In red, we have the hot performance for hot classification of hot batches, and blue, we have not batches. We can see that the model is able to catch 9 over 9 out of 10 not batches of beer. So if the batch is going to be labeled as not, we're pretty confident that we can identify with this neural network. However, on the other side, we have if the model predicts that the batch is going to be a hot batch of beer, then it is likely to be determined to be hot by the panel of beer tasters in over 9 out of 10 cases. The downside of this model is that it is basically over-predicting non-batches of beer. About 4 to 1 is the opposite ratio. So only about 1 in 5 of the batches that are ultimately going to be not batches end up being not batches. We can see that in the model precision for not. So I developed an app that is going to go inside of another app that New Belgium uses. It's called the Auto Taster. So essentially, the Auto Taster is just going to be used by sensory scientists to determine, here's a batch of beer that we have chemical measurements on. Here we have, this is made up data, by the way. This is a made up fat tire beer. And I'm going to auto taste this with this neural network. Neural network thinks that this is not. However, I happen to know that this is based on data that was hot by the panel. So this is a good example of it being overcautious. Let's try something else. So this is a Voodoo Ranger here, example number 3. We're going to auto taste this, and it's going to say hot. And so what we know about the precision of this model is if it determines the batch is hot, then it probably is, and that's correct. Turns out to be correct in this case. So finally, this example 4 is a shandy, and I happen to know that this one was rated to be not hot in panel. And indeed, the auto taster is able to catch that this is not hot. So my name is Kirk O'Donovan. I'd like to thank Matt Smith and Jan Zekroik in New Belgium. They helped me with code and data guidance, and also my instructors, Taryn Heilman and John Courtney at the DSI. So again, if you are looking for a data scientist, I happen to know a guy, so come and talk to me afterwards. Thank you.
Question? You have a question? What techniques did you use to impute the missing values in your data set?
I filled them, I believe, with a standard, whatever let's see, let me think. I think I filled them with -1 to indicate to the neural network that this this is a unique value. Basically, I wanted it to know, the question was how I filled the values. Oh, you had a microphone, I don't have to repeat it. So the way I did that was fill it with a value that's not possible. And so the neural network is able to identify that means something, in this case, that it wasn't measured.
Why did you choose that model? I mean, compared to other models, I'm over here.
Oh, thanks.
Yeah. What was your reasoning for choosing the neural network model?
Well, it performed better than the rain. I also tried rainforest, and it performed better than the rainforest in that it was able to identify not batches of beer. The rainforest approach to this problem was to just classify all beer as hot, which got a higher class of accuracy, but it was useless to me. So I was trying to develop a tool that could actually catch those non-batches for the Belgium.
So you mentioned about the class imbalance. Can you comment on that? Because your prediction is quite biased, so class imbalance would play an important role. The way you are imputing your data.
Mm-hmm. I randomly resampled from the not batches of beer. That's how I rebalance them. So regionally, I don't know if I said this, it was about 4 to 1. And also on the other side, the model classified not 4 times more than it classified hot. But for the training set, I balanced with just resampling from the not space.
Did you notice any drift in the model? Basically, did hot or not change over time as to what people preferred?
Oh, in terms of actual time?
Yeah, like these change.
I did not account for time, so I'm not sure. But I did account for biases that the tasters have in my classification of whether the batches were hot or not. So a different galvanized student classified tasters by how likely they were to maybe detect aroma differences, or how likely they were to classify these batches in general as hot or not. Some people say hot all the time, some people say not all the time. So I incorporated that into the metric that determined whether the batch was hot or not.
Right, you had mentioned that some of your samples had more data, chemical data measured than others. Was there a correlation there in the ones that were on the edge of being rated not, that they would have had more tests done, or was there any correlation in there that the neural network might have picked up on as a signal of a marginal view?
Well, I did not check that, and so I'm not sure. Whether or not the chemicals are measured is based on what flavor it was. So it is possible that if a flavor is a beer is usually rated as not or hot, then the model will pick up that as part of the information that it's using to decide if it's hot or not. But I'm not sure.
Have you considered model interpretability in terms of what factors are contributing to this, so that you can inform those factors more precisely?
One of the advantages of the random forest, if that worked, was that I could get some feature importance out of the model. A disadvantage of a neural network, aside from it performing decently well in this case, but well overall, is that we don't know what's going on inside. The weights are not very interpretable.
It sounds like your model accounts for existing flavors. Did you consider maybe looking into new flavors based on the chemical makeup?
No, new flavors don't come along that often, but I suppose if I were to use if a new flavor were to be usable in the model, you would want to classify beer by more general categories. IPA, for instance, the Voodoo Rangers might all go together. The Fat Tires, Belgian White. So that would be how you can handle a new flavor. But in these cases, the new beers are generally reproductions. They do have seasonal, but in general, they're reproductions of things they've done before.
Did you consider
looking for color or for smell or for something non-chemical in your correlations?
Those are actually included in the chemical measurements. I did not list out examples of chemicals, but one of the metrics is a color metric. Smell is determined by the beer taster and incorporated in the label of whether or not it is hot or not.
Okay, so since you guys are such a serious crowd, I have to throw you at least one curveball, lame-ass joke. Are you ready?
Okay.
Can you think of any other applications for your hot or not classification system? I can't either. Okay, let's move on. All right, that was a great talk. Thank you. Let's go ahead and have our next speaker up here, Seth Familian.
Hi, everyone. All right. So, who here is wondering what daisy chain cloud tools are? All right, hands, excellent. Before I tell you about that, I want to give you a super quick background on me. I am a strategist. I used to work for really big companies like Apple and Bertelsmann. Then I became a growth hacker with my own consultancy for a bunch of little companies like Cloud9 and Glip and a little company called Cisco. I'm a D3 nerd. Who here likes D3? Yes. So I play around with it a lot. I built a couple of platforms in D3, including a way to rate your love life called Data Rater. I'm an educator and I teach workshops, and I used to teach a lot at General Assembly on visual design with data and working with big data and digital tools for business. Most importantly, I'm a procrastinator, which means whenever I'm banging my head against a really big problem, I stop and I do something creative, like make a book of photographs or hack a piece of IKEA furniture into a different piece of IKEA furniture, or build a site called Next Rapture, which I will just let you look up because it predicts when the next rapture is going to arrive in minutes, like you are waiting for a bus. But I'm not here to talk about that. Who here works with email addresses? And who here works with any sort of streaming web data, like website data? Cool. For all the 5 people who raised their hand, this presentation is for you. So I want to tell you about some of the stuff I've been doing with my clients that might be applicable to all of you as well. I hope you can take this and run with it. And the idea is you start with raw data that streams from a website, and you use a tool that basically pipes all the data called Segment. And you take that segment data, you identify the users on your website, you enrich the data by looking it up, or you look up the email address against a platform called Clearbit, and then you pass the enriched data over to other cloud platforms, one called Mixpanel, which is great for visual analytics, another called Intercom, which is great for marketing automation. And then you dashboard everything together into a final platform called Clipfolio, and you're good to go. So this is what daisy chaining cloud tools is all about. And so I want to just dive into this in a little bit more detail. So Segment is one of my best friends. There are lots of other platforms out there that do the same thing. It's data pipelining. And basically what that means is you only have to measure things once, and then you can pass that data to any other number of systems you want. So if I hit the home page, you write a super simple call, analytics.page. I hit the home page, cool. And that gets sent to every single downstream platform. Then if someone goes ahead and they look at the article page, for instance, I can say, oh, they looked at a page, and by the way, this page had tags on it, like research and cloud. And I'll put those tags in an array, and then I can use those tags later in a visualization platform or an analytics platform. I can also track events, like they shared an article, and here's where they shared it. But most importantly is when someone signs up for that newsletter. And when they do, I will alias the anonymous user who was just one giant 64-bit string of gobbledygook against the email address they've just provided, and therefore that email is tied to all of the history they've done up to the point that they signed up for the newsletter and everything forward. And then I'll say, hey, I'm gonna identify that person as this email address, and I'll track them as subscribed. So that's step 1. Then I use this platform called Clearbit. There are others too. One's called Full Contact, and I will enrich the email address with publicly available information. So if you look up seth@familian1.com, you will see all of this personal information about me. And then if you look up familian1.com, you'll see all this corporate information about me. And I will then pass that back into Segment, so that data then flows into downstream platforms like Mixpanel. So one of the profiles that was in the Clearbit data was, what is my level of seniority? And it turns out I'm an executive because I have a company of 1. at least with familiar to one. And so if I view any page by Clearbit seniority, and I look at all the different tags that people looked at, this is what I can actually see. I get this amazing insight into who is looking at all of the content on the website. I can see what executives looked at versus managers versus directors. And then, since this is Analyze Boulder, let's do a little bit of analysis. What are executives likely to read that directors aren't likely to read, because I want to target executives? Well, it looks like they really like IoT articles when directors don't, and they really like digital transformation articles when directors don't, or when managers don't as well. So if I want to try and target unknown C-suite people, maybe I should give them these kinds of articles. So that's where I'll use Intercom. I'll write a rule in an email or an in-app message that says it uses all the same data. So if they were last seen more than 10 days ago and they haven't engaged in either of those two subcategories or those topics, and their segment is C-suite thanks to Clearbit, we're going to go ahead and send them an email and try and get them to engage in content that we know is relevant to them. And then finally, I will dashboard all of that information against Clipfolio so we can see how the subscribers trend over time, how seniority distributes across that entire subscriber list. And believe it or not, that's just the beginning. I can then also put Google Analytics data on top in the same unified dashboard, because you gotta have all the data in one place. I'll then stream in all the social footprint data with another platform called Quintly, because time series social data is a huge pain in the ass to capture on your own, excuse me, pain in the butt. And finally, if you really wanna get fancy, you can use a platform like Typeform to run a Net Promoter Score survey off of Intercom, and then dashboard the information in Google Sheets, and then pass back all of the categories that you've inferred from the Net Promoter Score survey into Intercom so you can have a bunch of insight. And I wrote a post on that on my website. Anyway, so that's it. I hope you enjoyed what I had to talk about, and I'm open to any questions. Yes. Oh yeah, and that's my contact info. Drop me a line. Say hi.
I didn't see a level of channel analysis in there. If you look at what channels and mediums were converting better.
Sure, so that happens in the Google Analytics piece. Right. And there's a missing chart that's here because I didn't want to clutter up the slide, but it's all conversion. So it basically said, what are the goals we're going after, signed up for a newsletter, shared this article, what sources are driving those conversions. And so all that traffic stuff comes from Google Analytics typically. You could also do it in Mixpanel. Mixpanel, I find, is much better when you're trying to understand really deep user behavior in funnels. That's it. Okay. Yeah. Sorry, I need to repeat the question. What if I have multiple email addresses? That's a great problem. So if you have multiple email addresses, then typically you will identify each user uniquely as underneath that email address. Some of the best enrichment platforms out there, like Full Contact and Clearbit, can say this email is linked to this email. You can also do joins on really interesting things. So you can use the social footprint of someone in order to link email addresses together. You can say, oh, this person has a LinkedIn platform with this email address, and they have a Facebook platform with this email address, but they have a common third Google Plus platform. You can do basically a join on all of those, and you can start to understand how do your users overlap. But the problem you described is actually a really tricky one. And ideally, you're trying to get one email per person. You usually have to solve that separately and just do joins on the data. It's really hard to reconcile all that stuff inside of a platform like Mixpanel or even Intercom.
Do a lot of your users come in through things like VPN, and if so, does that cause problems as far as what you can see?
That's an awesome question. Do a lot of the users come in through VPN, and does that cause a lot of problems? About 10 to 20% of people come in through VPN, and that throws off the IP address, but that does not throw off the email address that they provide. So you have issues with geolocation, but you don't have issues with other things that are identified off of their email address. There's another problem that's worth noting for any of you who are planning on implementing Segment or Fivetran or other similar platforms, which is if you just try to do it on the front end, 20% of users, maybe it overlaps with the VPN people, also are blocking all cookies that are dropped on the website. right? So you're actually going to underestimate the actual traffic that you have on the site if you're just doing front-end measurement. You can use server-side calls as well. So if you do back-end server-side calls and identify users when they do an event that's trackable by your server, then you can boost that back up to closer to 100%, because you can't get around blocking someone reading what's actually happening if you're updating a cloud.
More questions?
You get the award for the highest data to ink ratio.
Data to ink ratio?
Yeah, tough to.
Thank you, thank you, thank you.
Thank you very much. That's a great reference. Another question. Okay, going once, going twice. Big round of applause. What's that? Thanks, everyone. All right, I would like to thank all three of our presenters tonight. I think this was a great batch. I also want to thank all of you for being here, because frankly, Analyze Boulder would be nothing without all of you here tonight. It's a nice big crowd. We're having a really good time. Eric has a whole bunch more beer. Who's interested in drinking it? So Tony gave us a really funny icebreaker. Do you guys see this? You have to be honest, okay? So what this is it's intended for inward data geeks like me who can make conversation on our own about something like this up there that says, which is harder to lead, your job or your relationship? Be honest. I know what my answer is. I'll leave the rest to you guys. Thanks for coming tonight.
That was smooth. That was, yeah. Quick. Stop broadcast.